Good day. It's so nice to be with you again, on the same wavelength. Today, I want to talk about those little things that subtly affect our well-being. Have you ever noticed how some men, as the years go by, seem to carry an ever heavier cloud over their heads? Perhaps you felt it yourself, that creeping irritation, a feeling of being misunderstood, or a quiet sadness that settles in your soul, even when loved ones are around. This isn't just old age creeping up. Often, it's the result of an accumulation of certain habits, like tiny weeds in a garden that slowly but surely choke out joy. We might not even realize we're cultivating them ourselves. Think of it this way: our mind and heart are finely tuned instruments. If we constantly play the same dissonant notes on them, for example, the things were better before tune or the silent solo of I can handle everything myself, the music of our lives can become quite bleak. I'm talking about how we unconsciously push people away with constant grumbling or lock ourselves in a fortress of solitude, believing it to be a show of strength. Sometimes, it's such a strong attachment to the past that the present feels hostile. These aren't character flaws, they are often learned responses that have outlived their usefulness. But what if I told you that by changing just a few of these patterns, you could bring more warmth, more laughter, more genuine connection back into your life? Imagine feeling lighter, being better understood, and yes, even happier. The tips I'm about to share don't require grand, revolutionary changes. They are simple, gentle shifts, like slightly adjusting the sails on a boat to catch a better wind. So stay with me, because understanding these 5 common pitfalls and knowing how to navigate them can truly transform your golden years into a time of renewed satisfaction and deep connections. The first such habit we often see, and it's a truly insidious one, is holding on too tightly to how things used to be and, as a result, resisting anything new. What to do? Gently unclench your fists and open your mind to let in a little bit of now. Let me tell you about Arthur, a sharp man of 72. Arthur was fiercely proud of the ways of his generation. He scoffed at smartphones, called social media nonsense, and lamented that today's youth didn't understand hard work. His catchphrase was, "In my day?" Because of this, he felt increasingly disconnected from his grandchildren and even his own children, who felt they couldn't share their modern lives with him. He was becoming, in his own quiet way, quite bitter. He'd sit in his armchair, the newspaper his only companion, feeling like the world was leaving him behind, and frankly, he was angry about it. His granddaughter, bless her heart, gently but persistently tried to reach him. She didn't argue, she simply showed him how he could read his favorite newspapers online on a simple tablet with adjustable font sizes. He grumbled, "Of course, this contraption will break," he'd say. "It's too complicated." But slowly, hesitantly, he started using it. First for news, then she showed him how to watch old war documentaries on YouTube, something he loved. Then how to video call his brother who lived abroad. The change was remarkable. Arthur started asking questions instead of dismissing everything new. He even started sending his grandkids funny animal videos he found online. That gruff exterior began to soften. He wasn't just less angry, he became more engaged, more connected. He found a new way to participate in life, not just observe it with disapproval. You know, our brain is amazing. It loves to learn, regardless of our age. When we resist the new, we're essentially telling our brain to shut down. But when we engage with something new, even if it seems difficult at first, it's like a workout for the mind, keeping it flexible and active. It releases dopamine, that feel-good chemical, when we master a new skill, no matter how small. Think of it like an old tree. If it becomes too rigid, a strong wind can break its branches. But if it maintains some flexibility, it can sway and adapt and continue to flourish. Letting go of the good old days doesn't mean forgetting them. It means making room for new good times too. By embracing a bit of the new, you'll find your mind stays sharper, your conversations become richer, and your connections with younger generations can deepen wonderfully. You might even surprise yourself by what you enjoy. So, my challenge for you this week, try one small new thing. Maybe it's listening to a new type of music, cooking a new dish, or learning one new feature on your phone. Just one. And so, when we open ourselves to the new, it often involves new people and new forms of communication. However, there's another trap that's easy to fall into, especially after retirement or losing loved ones: social isolation. Not that blessed quiet when you're enjoying a book, but that oppressive loneliness when the phone stays silent for days. The antidote is to actively seek out connection. Think of George. He was 68 when he was widowed. His home, once full of laughter and conversation, became quiet and empty. George had always been sociable, but after his wife passed, he withdrew. He declined invitations from old friends, saying he wasn't in the mood. Days were spent watching TV and looking through old photos. He felt incredibly lonely, and this sadness grew into a quiet anger at fate, at friends who he felt had forgotten him. One day, his son, seeing his father fading, almost dragged him to a meeting of the local hiking club. George resisted, saying it was silly stuff for old folks, that he'd have nothing to talk about with strangers. The first few times, he walked silently, a little apart from the group, feeling awkward and out of place. But nature, fresh air, and the gentle smiles of other members started to work their magic. Someone asked him about his old job. Someone else shared a funny story. Slowly, very slowly, George began to thaw. He discovered he had common interests with these people, that he enjoyed their company. A couple of months later, George wasn't just going on hikes. He became one of the route organizers. He could be heard laughing again, telling jokes. He even joined a chess club he learned about from a new friend. His house was still quiet without his wife, but now it was a peaceful quiet, not an oppressive emptiness, because he knew friends and interesting activities awaited him. We humans are social creatures. Connection is as vital to our brains as food is to our bodies. When we interact, laugh, share stories, our bodies produce oxytocin, the hug and trust hormone. It reduces stress, improves mood, and strengthens bonds. Isolation, on the other hand, is like slow starvation for the soul. Imagine a lighthouse. It's strong and important, but if it stands all alone, with no ships to light the way for, its light loses some of its meaning. Now picture a bustling harbor, where ships come and go, where life is teeming. Active connection transforms us from a lonely lighthouse into part of that harbor. You'll not only reduce feelings of loneliness, but also boost your mood, get an energy lift, and find new sources of joy. So, if you felt your social circle shrinking, take one step today. Call an old friend you haven't spoken to in a while, or find out what interest clubs are in your area. A small effort can bring great joy. Seeking connection and interest, clubs often leads us to the next important point. Because when we find such groups, we usually do something together. And herein lies the third habit that can subtly poison life: abandoning new hobbies or neglecting to revive old ones, especially after a career ends. When days become monotonous and the only activity is watching television, boredom and a sense of uselessness can easily turn into irritability. The antidote is to find something that ignites a spark in you. Meet Michael. He's 75. All his life he was an engineer, his mind constantly occupied with solving complex problems. Upon retiring, he felt lost. "What am I supposed to do now?" he'd ask his wife with poorly concealed despair. He watched a lot of news, criticized politicians, grumbled about the weather. Internally, he felt an emptiness, his uselessness, and it made him sullen. His wife suggested he do something for his soul, like revisit his old hobby of wood carving, which he'd done in his youth. Michael waved it off. "That's all nonsense. At my age to start, and who needs it anyway?" He considered hobbies frivolous, a waste of time. But one day, while clearing out old things in the attic, he stumbled upon his old chisels and a few unfinished figurines. Something stirred in his heart. He brought them downstairs, blew off the dust. Just for something to do, he picked up a piece of wood and a chisel. At first, it was clumsy. His hands had forgotten the skill. He got angry, wanted to give up. But the engineer's stubbornness took over. He started watching tutorial videos, reading books. A few weeks later, he carved his first successful piece, a small bird. He looked at it, and for the first time in a long while, a smile appeared on his face. Not a bitter smirk, but a genuine, warm smile of pride. He had made something with his own hands, something beautiful. He began spending more and more time in his small workshop. He made toys for his grandchildren, decorations for the house. His mood changed dramatically. He had a purpose again, albeit not as grand as before, but his own, bringing satisfaction. His eyes sparkled, his grumbling almost disappeared. When we are engaged in something, when we create or learn something new, our brain produces dopamine, a neurotransmitter associated with pleasure and motivation. It's not just killing time, it's active brain work that supports cognitive functions, improves memory and concentration. It's like turning a stagnant pond into a flowing river. The water clears and life appears in it. Think about what you once enjoyed or what you've always wanted to learn. It could be anything: gardening, painting, learning a new language, playing a musical instrument, volunteering. Having a hobby or passion gives us a sense of purpose, fills our days with meaning and the joy of discovery. It's your chance to feel like a student, a creator, an explorer again. So, don't put it off. Recall an old passion or dare to try something completely new. It could become your personal source of energy and inspiration. Of course, such a source of energy and inspiration helps one see the world more positively. But what if, even with hobbies, the old habit of seeing everything in a negative light takes over? The fourth thing that can subtly make a man angrier and lonelier is the habit of constantly complaining and focusing on the negative. Sure, everyone has bad days, and sometimes you need to let off steam. But when grumbling becomes the primary way of interacting with the world, it pushes people away and creates an aura of dissatisfaction around the person. The replacement? Consciously cultivating gratitude and a constructive approach. David, who was 70, was a master at finding fault in everything. The food at the restaurant was not like it used to be. The weather was always bad. Young people were lazy and ill-mannered. His wife and children tried to avoid topics that might trigger another wave of criticism. As a result, communication with him became increasingly superficial, and David himself felt more misunderstood and, consequently, irritated. He didn't understand why his loved ones were distancing themselves. After all, he was just telling the truth. His daughter, a psychologist, once gently suggested he try keeping a gratitude journal. David initially scoffed. Gratitude? What's there to be grateful for? He considered it sentimental nonsense. But his daughter was persistent and asked him to just try it for a week. Every evening, write down 3 things he was grateful for. Grudgingly, he agreed, mostly to get her off his case. The first few days were difficult. He wrote down mundane things: a sunny day, a tasty dinner. But gradually, as he forced himself to look for the good, he began to notice things he hadn't paid attention to before. His granddaughter's smile, a neighbor's help, a beautiful flower in the garden. After a month, his entries became more detailed. He started noticing people's kindness, small joys, and most surprisingly, he started complaining less. Instead of immediately criticizing, he more often said, "Thank you." His family noticed the change. The atmosphere at home became warmer. David didn't turn into an effusive optimist, but the sarcasm left his speech, and a softer light appeared in his eyes. When we constantly focus on the negative, we train our brain to notice only the bad. It's like a magnifying glass, you only focus on spots and cracks, ignoring the beauty of the whole picture. Complaining creates a negative feedback loop. We complain, feel worse, others react to our negativity, and we complain even more. Gratitude works the opposite way. It redirects our attention to the good things in our lives, even the small ones. This doesn't mean ignoring problems, but it means not letting them overshadow everything else. Imagine your thoughts are a radio receiver. You can tune it to a station of constant static and interference, complaints, or to one with pleasant music, gratitude. This improves mood, reduces stress, and even strengthens the immune system. And of course, it makes you a much more pleasant person to be around. Try a simple exercise. Every time you feel like complaining, stop for a second and find 2 things you can be grateful for in that moment. It's a small shift in focus that can lead to big changes. Such a shift in focus is, essentially, working with our inner world, with how we perceive and react. And this brings us to the last, 5th thing, the habit of hiding one's true feelings behind a mask of stoicism or imperturbability. Many men were taught from childhood not to cry, to be strong, not to show weakness. As a result, as adults, they continue to suppress their emotions, fearing they'll appear vulnerable. But this armor often leads to misunderstanding, alienation, and an inner anger that finds no outlet. The alternative is to allow oneself healthy emotional openness. Robert, 69, was the epitome of such a stoic. He never talked about his feelings. If he was sad, he withdrew into himself. If something bothered him, he'd brush it off with an everything's fine. His son, Mark, always felt this wall between them. He loved his father, but didn't know how to approach him. Mark shared, "I never know what he's really thinking or feeling. Sometimes I feel like I'm indifferent to him." Robert, in turn, felt lonely and misunderstood, but believed that complaining or talking about some feelings wasn't manly. He bottled up resentments and disappointments, which sometimes erupted in sudden outbursts of anger over trivial things. One day, after a serious conversation with his wife, who told him his emotional unavailability was hurting both her and their son, Robert reflected. It was very difficult for him. His first attempts were awkward. He started small. When his wife asked how his day was, instead of the usual fine, he might say, "I'm a bit tired today," or "It was good to see an old friend." When Mark called to talk about a problem at work, Robert, instead of giving dry advice, said, "Yeah, I understand. That must be unpleasant. I've faced similar things." For Mark, this was a revelation. He felt his father heard and understood him. Their conversations became deeper. Robert discovered that sharing his experiences wasn't a weakness, but, on the contrary, a way to build stronger, warmer relationships. He became calmer because he stopped carrying the burden of unexpressed emotions. Suppressing emotions is like trying to hold an inflatable ball underwater. Sooner or later, it will burst out, and with unexpected force. Unexpressed emotions don't disappear. They accumulate and can lead to chronic stress, anxiety, health problems, and of course, outbursts of anger. Emotional openness doesn't mean crying at every corner. It means being able to recognize your feelings and express them appropriately to loved ones. It's like the valve on a pressure cooker. If it's not there, the cooker can explode. But if it is, steam is released gradually, and everything cooks safely and deliciously. When you share your feelings, you give other people a chance to understand you better, to support you. This builds trust and intimacy. You'd be surprised how much lighter your heart feels when you allow yourself to be authentic, without hiding behind a mask. Start small. Today, share one genuine feeling with someone you trust. Tell them what you appreciate, what pleased you, or what upset you. It's a step towards deeper, warmer relationships. So, there you have them. 5 common paths that can lead to increased anger and loneliness, and 5 simple yet powerful ways to choose a different direction. You, my friends, have lived through decades. You possess vast experience and wisdom. You've earned the right to enjoy these years in peace, joy, and meaningful connections. These aren't radical overhauls. They are gentle adjustments, like fine-tuning a beloved instrument so it can play its most beautiful music. It's never too late to cultivate new habits that nourish your soul and strengthen your bonds with others. Remember, your well-being is a garden you can tend to every day. Believe in your ability to make these positive changes, step by step. You deserve a life filled with warmth and connection.